advanced manufacturing, an economy that is set up to benefit from the next inevitable wave of technological change, one which promises to return manufacturing to our cities and to nurture a new generation of Australians enthusiastic about making things, whether that means computer games and robots or cars and houses. Today I want to talk about what we have to do to help Australian employees, Australian employers, Australian industry and the Australian economy adapt and prosper in this time of change. What Australia needs to do is meet the challenges of this decade. And we need policies that guarantee our national prosperity beyond the next 3 years. I am determined that Labor will be the party with positive ideas about our future. Because we do need new ideas in health, new ideas in education, new ideas for our economy. I know that when he was opposition leader, Tony Abbott used his political Ouija board to channel Lord Randolph Churchill from the 19th century. Oppose everything, propose nothing, and turf the government out. Now, the Abbott model did work at the last election. I firmly believe, however, it will not work again. I prefer to take my inspiration from the New Year's resolution of John Curtin when he was elected opposition leader, to act and think helpfully and not play fault finder. Throughout my working life, from when I was a lawyer to a union rep to a superannuation fund director and the Parliamentary Secretary for Disabilities and indeed a minister, I've always been a consensus builder and a believer in the power of negotiation. I know there is always more than one side to every argument. And I know that no one, no matter how well-intentioned, has a monopoly on all the good ideas. And that will be my approach as Labor leader. It's why Labor has reached out to cooperate with the government on drought assistance for our farmers. It's why we've avoided overly opportunistic point scoring on the deterioration of our relationship with Indonesia. It's why we support the government's new Closing the Gap targets and indeed have proposed 3 of our own. Under my leadership, Labor will be constructive. It will be an alternative government that offers genuine policy choices, not simply empty criticism or 3-word slogans. Our policies will be driven by Labor values, supported by hard evidence and the best science. I think this combination of principle and logic is evident in some of the reforms of the previous 6 years. For example, we created the National Disability Insurance Scheme to empower an important but marginalised group of Australians, people with impairment, their carers, the people who love them. The National Disability Insurance Scheme will deliver a productivity boost to our nation and it will save taxpayer money in the long run. We too resisted the harsh austerity measures and steered Australia through the global financial crisis with industry, with financial services, with a focus on keeping people in work and supporting growth with nation-building infrastructure investment. We negotiated a fairer funding agreement for schools because we believe that every child deserves the same opportunity for a great education and the best possible start in life. We understand that a country's education system is the decisive factor in its economic prosperity for future generations. Our objective is to deliver the best outcome for everyone, not to score political points simply or slavishly follow a hardline ideology. People rightly laud the Hawke-Keating generation as a time when Labor delivered changes, hard decisions that delivered a dividend for that generation. Those reforms to markets, to deregulation, to trade and to enterprise bargaining freed up the Australian economy. 20 years on, my generation and all of us need to recommit to real reform. In particular, Australia needs a new, energised national commitment to science and innovation. This will mean making difficult decisions in order to set our nation up for the next generation. We believe that government assistance for industries should be the exception, not the rule, provided only to industries that are willing to adapt to change and embrace innovation. We do believe government has a moral obligation to try its hardest to keep people in work. But our view is not just based on our values. The evidence is clear. When a government assists an industry in transition, the benefits are shared throughout the economy. If we leave people and companies and communities to wither, or seek to accelerate their demise, we are putting future Australian jobs, future skills, future innovation and technology at risk of permanent and severe damage. As I mentioned earlier, there is a misconception that manufacturing is an unprofitable sector that offers only low-tech, dirty jobs. This is wrong. In 2013, 21 of Australia's 100 most profitable companies were in manufacturing, the highest representation of any one industry. And there is no such thing as a low-technology industry. There are only industries and companies that have invested in remaining at the cutting edge and those that have not. Some commentators have argued that the closure of Holden, the announced closure of Holden and now Toyota, is proof of national economic progress. Not true. In fact, the death of the Australian auto industry is a major backward step, a dangerous deindustrialisation. Not only will we lose valuable skills and highly specialised workers, we lose an entire range of manufacturing capabilities. Capabilities that could have underpinned more sophisticated and advanced forms of manufacturing. The capability to manufacture fine instruments and gauges for the aerospace industry. The capability to produce electrical systems for our Navy's weapon systems. All of these capabilities, all of that potential, all of that opportunity will be lost to our nation unless we act decisively now. Because with the right plan and the right settings, Australia can capitalise in a time of transition and change. We can seize the opportunity to reimagine our manufacturing sector and look after the thousands, the tens of thousands of Australians and the thousands of businesses that rely upon it. But there has been no plan by the Abbott government. There is no evidence of a determination to seize the moment. It is easy for Joe Hockey to lecture Australians on the need to do the heavy lifting. But the Abbott government has to do more of this than just simply demand it of the rest of us. It needs to set the example. It needs to lead the way. In times of economic transition, a government's first priority should be to keep people in work. Because a fulfilling job brings identity, self-esteem, independence. Unemployment guarantees only unhappiness and misery. As Labor leader, I will continue to speak out about job losses and support for existing jobs. As Labor leader, I shall focus too on the new jobs, the small to medium enterprises, the high-tech, the start-ups, be it in health, be it in agriculture and defence, or financial and education services. I believe we need to shift from a policy of managed decline to one that focuses on development, focuses on innovation, focuses on transition. In the immediate context of our car industry, the government needs to assist the component suppliers, the plastic, the glass, the metal manufacturers, to adjust their operations and to find new markets for their products. A success story is the Palm Products factory in Melbourne. This was a business that originally produced high-quality car instrument lenses and brake parts and small mouldings for Ford. Following Ford's announced closure, Palm Products has reinvented itself as a producer of high-quality unbreakable drink futures if we start now. I do believe there is a role for government to strongly support retraining. People who suddenly find themselves unemployed often experience a massive loss of confidence and a loss of identity. The longer their unemployment lasts, the greater their deterioration in work readiness. Yet this workforce are highly skilled problem solvers and team players. I have genuinely been surprised by the cold-blooded heartnesses that the Abbott government has displayed when pushed on their plans for the jobs of the future. I am troubled. There has been no sense of urgency, no evidence of a passion to help create the jobs of the future. It's confusing, really, because on one hand, the Abbott government has been at pains to portray that the demise of our automotive industry was inevitable. It's been long foreseen, they cry. It's unstoppable, they say. Yet their reaction to the 1-2 punch of the Holden and Toyota closure announcements and their statements of shock at those announcements and the Alcoa announcement suggests they have been caught entirely by surprise and have no plan. There's been no plan for structural assistance, no retraining options forthcoming, nothing but the Orwellian doublespeak of the liberation provided by unemployment queues. To me, the gravest failing of the Abbott government is not its lack of empathy, although I find that confronting. It's the lack of understanding, it's the lack of imagination, it's the lack of authenticity about jobs of the future. The only impulse I have seen is that the Abbott government would take Australians down a path of teaching Australians that learned helplessness from a government is the only thing that we can expect. The death of the Australian car industry is a tragedy, but it can also be a defining moment for Australia. It can be a call to arms for business, for politics, for employers, for our community. It's a chance to move past those old, constricting cliches of picking winners and corporate welfare. This can be a time when government, investors and business turn their energies to supporting a new generation of research, development and innovation. A wave of Australian discovery and invention in areas like genomics, quantum computing, bionics and nanotechnology can underpin a new era of national prosperity. That is why I believe that we need to make science and innovation a first-order national priority. Not an enclave up the back of the Department of Industry without a nominated Minister for Science, but central to all our policies and our prosperity and our future. We need an innovation-led growth plan, a plan that helps innovators commercialise their ideas, a plan that will ensure Australians benefit from all the amazing advances in health and medical research without bankrupting the nation, a plan that gets Australian kids interested in science and inspires the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs. This is something about which I am passionate, which is why I took responsibility upon becoming opposition leader for the shadow science portfolio. And I know our Shadow Minister for Industry, Kim Carr, is equally passionate about these matters. But why are smaller countries with less natural advantage and wealth, Korea, Taiwan, Israel, Finland, They are smaller than us and not as wealthy as us, yet they are all ahead of us in terms of investment in research and development. I believe Australia's level of investment in research and development needs to significantly increase. By 2030, global spending on research and development will increase by 250%. This will be driven by big investments from nations in our region, in China and India, as well as the emerging economic superpowers such as Brazil. Labor believes that making science and innovation a national policy and a political priority is nothing less than an investment in Australian brainpower. Now, it will not be easy at a time of slowing growth and downgraded public revenue, but there are no shortcuts to growth. Industries that invest in research and development are investing in their capacity for reinvention. Compared to businesses that don't innovate, innovative Australian businesses are 78% more likely to report increases in productivity over the previous year. Yet only 25% of Australian businesses collaborate on innovation. So if Australia produces some of the finest research in the world, which we do, why can't we have more collaboration between industry and research sectors? Make no mistake, the science race, the race for the good jobs of the future, is a race to the top, and it has begun across the world. And if Australia is not careful, we will be stuck on the blocks. We do not have 3 years or 6 years to waste. At this very moment, too many Australian school children are being taught science by hard-working but underqualified science teachers. There are too few Australians going on to study science and mathematics in our universities. Our nation is at a crossroads. Australia can either choose to get smarter or get poorer. We can choose to compete or to give up. As with industry policy, success will not depend on government alone. Now, I do believe that government can play an important role in covering investor risk, to helping create a climate of confidence and risk-taking that will encourage entrepreneurs to pursue the breakthroughs that will define this Australian century. As a passionate believer of science and innovation and a believer, an optimist in Australian creativity and ingenuity, I want us to value the startups. And quite often the hardest task for a startup or a small firm is to raise the capital for initial research and development. People in industry call it the valley of death. Strategic government investment can bridge this valley, and I believe the benefits will be remarkable. An innovation-led growth plan must support all budding industries, whether or not they have a focus on agriculture or defence, automotive industry or financial services or health and education services. If we are serious about turning Australian genius into wealth for our nation, why can't we equip our PhD students with the skills they need to commercialise their research? Additional skills such as entrepreneurship, intellectual property management, project management and financial literacy, so they can aspire to be the business leaders as well as the professors. This is a complex argument, and it involves competing with other priorities of government. But it's certainly a tougher argument to outline than no free rides, some jobs start, some jobs go policies. But I believe the Australian people can embrace this debate. I believe in Australian politics substance can trump slogans. My work on the National Disability Insurance Scheme has given me confidence that Australians will give good ideas a fair hearing regardless of political allegiance. I think Australians know and are hungry for serious national debates about where Australia, our home, will be in 2020 and 2030. That is why my focus in opposition is not about Tony Abbott. It's on what are the best policy ideas for the future of our country, for the future of our children. That's why I'm determined to start a conversation about an Australian economy which values science, mathematics, engineering and technology at its core. Mastering this moment of economic transition will require a national effort, one that must begin with government leadership. Shoulder-shrugging fatalism about the death of industries is no prescription for a bright future for our kids and our grandkids. Our world is changing quickly. We can nostalgically rage against the dying of the light, or we can reignite the light on the hill and embrace the opportunities that change offers. Under my leadership, Labor is focused on fighting for jobs and driving innovation to create new jobs. We will insist on a deeper, richer political narrative about the role of science in national politics and our future. We will fight for a prosperous and fair Australia, one that has, as part of its vision, well-remunerated, high-skilled jobs in profitable and globally competitive businesses. Jobs that allow all Australians to provide for their family, to fulfil their potential and to live a long and happy life full of meaning. Fighting for jobs is Labor's core reason for being. It always has been. And, ladies and gentlemen, it will be our priority for the year ahead. Thank you very much.